Dragon Masters. Shine of the Silver Dragon. By Tracy West. 1. Where is Diego? Griffith the wizard clapped. Dragon Masters, settle down, he said. We have a lot to talk about. 5 Dragon Masters, Drake, Rory, Bo, Anna, and Petra, were gathered around the table in their classroom in King Roland's castle. Griffith, their teacher, had called them together for an important meeting. Griffith cleared his throat, about to speak, when a boy rushed into the room. Carlos! Drake cried. Carlos was another dragon master, who lived far away, in the kingdom of Aragon. Something bad happened to Diego, Carlos said. Lalo and I flew here as fast as we could to tell you. He pointed behind him, where a baby lightning dragon was shooting off sizzling sparks. I'm glad you're here, Griffith told him. We know that Diego is in trouble. Please join us. Carlos stood next to Anna. Griffith cleared his throat again. Now then, let's start at the beginning, he said. Yesterday, I got word that Maldred had escaped from Wizards' Council prison. Who is Maldred? Carlos asked. He is a bad wizard, Rory chimed in. He attacked King Roland's castle once, but we defeated him. She grabbed a book from a shelf. Then she flipped to a picture of Maldred. The wizard had a patch over one eye, and a long, pointy beard. Carlos gasped. That's him! That is the wizard who put a spell on Diego. You saw him? Griffith asked. Please tell us what happened. Diego and I were eating in the kitchen. Diego has seashells on the wall that act as a magical alarm. They began to shake, so we knew dark magic was near, Carlos explained. Diego told me to hide, and I did. Petra gasped. How scary! I watched from my hiding place, Carlos said. Maldred appeared out of nowhere. Diego tried to use magic against him, but it didn't work. Then Maldred said a spell, and Diego's eyes glazed over and turned red. Drake got a chill. The color of dark magic. Maldred vanished with Diego, Carlos said. They were both gone before I could do anything. Diego poofed here, Bo said. And he stole a book, The Lore of the Ancient One. Drake had seen Diego poof many times before. Diego waved his wand and could transport anywhere in a flash. Why would Diego steal a book? Carlos asked. Anna frowned. Griffith, you said the book was about something called the Naga, and that the whole world could be in danger. What did you mean by that? A dark look crossed Griffith's face. I must tell you all a story, he said. The tale of a legendary dragon known as the Naga. 2. The Tale of the Naga. A long, long time ago, Griffith began, when magic was new, there was a terrible earthquake. I was in an earthquake once, Petra said. The ground shook. And some buildings in my village crumbled into pieces. During this terrible earthquake, the ground opened up, Griffith continued. It coughed up a dragon egg from the deepest part of the world. The egg was as big as a mountain. Bo's eyes got wide. Was that the Naga's egg? Yes, Griffith replied. The Naga has the power of earthquakes. He uses the power of his mind, much like Worm does. Griffith was talking about Drake's earth dragon, Worm. The Naga sounds much bigger than Worm, Drake said. Indeed. Griffith is 100 times G. Drake's mouth dropped open. He couldn't imagine Worm being that powerful, Griffith went on. When the young Naga hatched, he could not control his powers. He started to destroy the earth. He brought down mountains. He caused great floods. Oh no! That's terrible, Anna cried. Did anybody stop him? Yes. The wizards did, Griffith answered. They knew the Naga was too big and too powerful to be out in the world. So they returned him to his home. How did they do that? Petra asked. They made 2 magical tools that gave them control of the Naga, Griffith replied. The wizards of the north made the silver key. And the wizards of the south made the gold key. They used these keys to make the Naga go back into the earth. Drake realized something. When Maldred attacked the castle, he was trying to take Worm so he could use his powers, he said. Do you think he wants to use the Naga for his powers, too? I am afraid so, Griffith replied. Where are the keys now? Petra asked. Griffith held up his finger. Blue sparks shot from it. He began to draw an image in the air out of magical blue light. The first image was a round disc with strange-looking symbols on it. This is the silver key, Griffith said. It is hidden somewhere in the northern part of the world, guarded by a silver dragon. He drew another disc, with different symbols. This is the gold key, he said. It is hidden somewhere in the southern part of the world, guarded by a gold dragon. And the book Diego stole tells how to find the keys. Drake guessed, and the wizard nodded. Then Rory said aloud what they were all thinking: if Maldred finds these keys, he will have control of the Naga. He could destroy the world. 3. A new mission. The Dragon Masters followed Griffith to his workshop. We must find Diego before Maldred uses him to do another evil deed, Griffith said as they walked down the hall. There's something I don't understand, Carlos said. Why didn't Maldred steal the book himself? Why did he need Diego to do it for him? Maldred knows that Diego and I are friends, so he knew Diego could get into this castle easily, Griffith replied. We need to find Diego before he finds the keys and gives them to Maldred, Petra said. Right. Griffith agreed. They entered the workshop. The room was piled high with strange things. Shelves held dozens of bottles filled with colorful waters and powders. Griffith rushed to the magical gazing ball and placed his hand over it. The large glass globe lit up. Diego, Diego, where did you go? Griffith asked, waving his hand over the ball. Hazy smoke swirled inside the ball. They all waited quietly, watching. Then the haze cleared, and an image appeared. An image of a short, round wizard. Diego! Carlos cried. Diego was standing at the foot of a hill. On top of the hill sat a sturdy-looking stone castle. I know this castle, Griffith said. It is in the land of Gallia, not far from here. We are in the northern part of the world, Petra said. So maybe the silver key is in Gallia. Griffith stroked his beard. That is a good guess. I studied the lore of the Ancient One for many years. But even I could not learn the exact location of the keys. The book is written in an ancient magical language. Can Maldred read the ancient magical language? Anna asked. Better than I can, Griffith replied. So if Diego is in Gallia, then the key must be there. He pointed at Drake, Bo, and Carlos. You 3 must get to Gallia right away, he said. Rory folded her arms across her chest. Why do only the boys get to go? We have a long fight ahead of us. I must choose Dragon Masters carefully for each mission. Griffith explained. Carlos knows Diego best, so he and Lalo must go. A water dragon's powers should be able to cure Diego of the dark spell, so Bo and Shu must go. And Drake and Worm can transport everyone there quickly, I guess that makes sense, Rory replied, frowning. But I'm definitely going on the next mission. I know I can always count on you, Rory, Griffith said. Now, Drake and Bo, go to the dragon caves and leave from there. Carlos and Lalo will follow you. Good luck, Anna said. Drake waved to Anna, Rory, and Petra. We won't let you down. Hurry, Griffith said. You must stop Diego from getting the silver key. 4. The castle. A few minutes later, Drake, Carlos, and Bo stood outside the dragon caves with their dragons. Bo's dragon, Shu, was a blue water dragon. She had no wings but was able to fly on air currents. She floated over to Bo's side like a ship sailing on the waves. Lalo the baby lightning dragon was half the size of Shu. The yellow dragon constantly sparked with electric energy. Since he was still a young dragon, he did not have full control of his powers yet. Calm down, Lalo, Carlos told him. We will find Diego. Drake's earth dragon, Worm, had a long, brown body and 2 tiny wings. He couldn't fly, but he could transport anywhere in the world in a flash. Drake looked down at the green dragon stone he wore around his neck. All dragon masters wore one just like it. His stone was glowing green, which meant that he and Worm had a strong connection. Drake, Carlos, and Bo all touched Worm. Bo touched Shu, and Carlos put one hand on Lalo. Worm, take us to Gallia to the castle we saw in the gazing ball, Drake said. Worm's body glowed green. The light exploded. Drake closed his eyes to shield them from the brightness. When he opened his eyes, all 3 dragon masters and their dragons were at the bottom of a hill. Drake gazed up at the gray stone castle they had seen in the gazing ball. The center of the castle, called the keep, was one big, 3-story rectangle. 4 round, 3-story towers surrounded the keep. Do you think Diego is already inside? Bo asked. He might be, Drake replied. Carlos stared up at the castle, and he bit his lower lip. There must be a lot of soldiers guarding the key, he said. What if they have captured Diego? Then we'll rescue him, Drake said. We need to get inside quick, Bo said. Should Worm transport us there? No one knows we're here yet, Drake replied. If Worm transports us into the castle, his bright light might give us away. Let's walk around the hill and sneak up from behind. I'll try to keep Lalo calm, so his sparks don't give us away either, Carlos offered. They walked around the hill and then climbed up to the castle. The land was eerily quiet. Drake kept his eyes on the 4 towers but didn't see any soldiers. I think Shu and I should fly up to that tower, Bo said, pointing. If there are soldiers up there, we'll catch them by surprise. Drake nodded. And then Worm and I can transport. If we do it fast enough, we can get ahead of the soldiers before they whoosh. Something whizzed past Drake's ear. He jumped to the side as he realized what it was, a rock. More rocks the size of apples came shooting down from the top of the tower. We're being attacked, Carlos yelled. 5, under attacky. Worm, protect us, Drake commanded. Worm's body glowed green, and the rocks froze in midair. Then they all harmlessly dropped straight down to the ground. What should we do? Bo asked. Lalo could fly up there and zap the soldiers so they will stop throwing rocks, Carlos suggested. Bo shook his head. We don't want to attack the people guarding this castle, he said. They are just trying to protect the key. We need to let them know we are here to help them. Drake frowned. There must be a whole army up there. Then his dragon stone glowed green, and he heard Worm's voice in his head. Just one. Just one? Drake asked. One what? One army? One soldier. One soldier? Drake repeated. That's impossible, Carlos cried. Another wave of rocks showered down from the tower, and Worm quickly stopped them in midair. One person couldn't be throwing all of these rocks. Bo agreed. Worm is always right about these things, Drake said. He looked at his dragon. What should we do, Worm? Transport to the tower. Drake touched Worm and turned to Carlos and Bo. Worm wants us all to transport up to the tower, he said. I trust Worm, Bo said, and he touched Worm's tail. I do, too, Carlos added, following Bo's lead. Worm transported them in a flash, and they landed on top of the big, round tower. As the green light faded, Worm saw a soldier marching toward them, a girl who looked to be 8 years old. Stop! Just like Drake and the others. Drake cried. She wore metal armor his hands and carried a sword pointed right at Drake. We are not here to steal the silver key. She yelled. We are here to help you protect this castle. The girl stopped marching toward them. But she did not lower her sword. What do you know of the silver key? She asked. Drake had already noticed two important things about the girl. She did not seem to be afraid of their dragons, even though Lalo was nervously shooting off sparks behind Carlos. Also, she wore a green dragon stone around her neck. We are dragon masters, just like you, Drake said. He held up his own dragon stone to show her. I can see that, the guide said. That does not mean I can trust you. I cannot let anyone enter this castle. It is my job to protect the key. But we want to help you, Bo said. A very bad wizard is trying to steal the key. We came here to stop him. You could be saying that to trick me, the girl said. We wouldn't do that, Drake said. Our dragons are not attacking you right now, are they? And we know you're the only person in this castle. The girl's dark eyes flashed. How do you know that? Drake pointed to Worm. My earth dragon, Worm, has some pretty awesome mind powers, he said. I'm Drake, by the way. This is Bo and his dragon, Shu. And that's Carlos and his dragon, Lalo. The girl lowered her sword. I'm Jean, she said. And you may be telling the truth. But you still cannot enter this castle. Drake was about to speak when he noticed something strange. Worm had closed his eyes, and his body was softly glowing. What's happening, Worm? Drake asked. I am reaching out to Jean's dragon, the earth dragon replied. Suddenly, Jean's dragon stone began to glow. Drake knew she was hearing her dragon's voice inside her head. Her eyes widened in surprise. Argent says that I must let you in, she said. I will do what he wishes. Is Argent your dragon? Bo asked. Yes, she said, waving for them all to follow her. Come. Where are we going? Drake asked. Jean smiled for the first time. To the lair of the silver dragon, she replied. 7. Jean's story. They started to follow Jean across the tower, but Carlos stopped. I think Lalo and I should stay here, he said. I can keep him calm, and we can keep a lookout for Diego. Is Diego this very bad wizard you spoke of? Jean asked. No, Drake replied. But the very bad wizard, Maldred, has put Diego under a spell. He sent Diego here to steal the silver key. Then we must not let him get inside the castle, Jean said. Carlos, let me show you something. She walked to the edge of the tower, looking out over the hillside. A dozen catapults were lined up along the tower's edge. These don't look like any of the catapults I have seen before, Carlos said. A catapult usually had a heavy weight on one end and a basket holding a large rock on the other. But at the end of each of these catapults was a long, narrow basket with 10 rocks nestled inside. I improved them, Jean explained. When you cut the rope attached to the basket, the weight will drop. Then the rocks will go flying forward. I changed these catapults to shoot several rocks so it looks like there are many soldiers up here. Wow. Jean is really smart, Drake thought. Your idea worked, he said. We thought we were facing an army. Jean smiled and then turned to Carlos. I've got 6 more catapults loaded, if you need them, she told him. Then she walked over to the opposite wall, where a rope was hanging. Pull on this rope if you see any wizards. A bell will ring in Arjun's lair. Carlos nodded. I will. Jean knelt down and opened a door on the floor. Drake, Bo, and their dragons followed her down a long, twisting stairway. Do you live here all alone? Drake asked. I am not alone, Jean replied. Arjun is here with me. Don't you have a wizard? Bo asked. The wizard lives with the king of Gallia, far from here, Jean explained. Nobody can be trusted to guard the silver key except Arjun and his dragon master. Arjun has been guarding the key since the wizards of the north first made it. Griffith, our wizard, told us that the keys were made a very long time ago. Drake said. So Arjun must have had many dragon masters. Yes, Jean said. I am proud to be his newest master. Don't you get lonely? Bo asked. They had come to a door at the end of the staircase. I keep myself busy, Jean said.